Hi everyone and welcome to the internet. What we're going to be doing in today's biology lesson is having a look at a process called cell differentiation. To start us off though, there are 3 questions based around our previous lesson, so have a go at answering those in your book for me. I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to do that. Let's mark those answers then. So question 1, the 4 stages we needed to name, and you can give yourself a tick for each of these you got right: DNA synthesis, mitosis, cytokinesis, and growth. So the order doesn't matter in this case, we were just listing the processes, so 1 mark for each of those you got right. For question 2, the process of DNA synthesis, 3 marks available to us here. First one is if we say the DNA unzips or unwinds. Second one for saying that 3 nucleotide bases join to the complementary base pairs. and the third mark if you actually named those base pairs. So A to T and C's to G's. So remember, it's curly letters go together, the C and the G, and the pointy letters go together, the A and the T. Then for number 3, our first mark comes for saying that the chromosomes line up along the equator or the centre of the cell. Either of those work. Second mark is for saying the chromosomes are pulled to the opposite poles, or you may have said the spindle fibres pull the chromosomes to the opposite poles. If you said opposite ends of the cell, you can also have the mark for that one. Third mark if you said the nucleus reforms around the chromosomes. And then your final mark for saying the cell divides by cytokinesis. So add up your scores. There's a total of 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 there today. So give yourself a score out of 11. So the title of today's lesson is Cell Differentiation. And before we can really get stuck in with this, we need to know what on earth we're talking about where we say this word differentiation. The definition is on your screen there, so I'd suggest you write this in your book so you've got the actual definition. When we're talking about cell differentiation, what we're talking about is the process where we're converting an unspecialized cell to become specialized so that it can carry out a particular function. So I'll leave this up for about a minute so you've got a chance to write this in your books. What I'd like you to do is, in your books, have a go at answering this question for me. Why do cells become specialised? So what is the whole purpose of this process of differentiation? 30 seconds, answers in your books. Hopefully what we've written in our books is that the reason cells become specialised is because it allows them to carry out that role or that job more efficiently. So rather than just having one cell fits all, which it doesn't, then we can have special cells for each particular role, and they can have features that make them better at doing that. The first type of specialised cell we're going to look at in a bit more detail is one that hopefully you remember from Key Stage 3, the sperm cell. Now I've given you a picture at the bottom of the screen there with a few of those key featured labelled on. What I want you to have a go at doing is, actually first of all, whatever your target grade is, state the function of the sperm cell. And then if your target grade is up to a grade 4, I want you to list the adaptations. And if your target grade is above a grade 4, then what I want you to do is explain the adaptations. So the key difference between our lower and our higher answer there is, rather than just saying the adaptations are this and making a bullet point list, we're going on to say the adaptations are this, and this adaptation allows it to carry its role because. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to have a go at that. What we actually find then is the function of the sperm cell is to carry the male genetic material or the male DNA to the egg for fertilization. So if you wrote that, give yourself a tick. Then we've got three key adaptations of the sperm cell that allow it to do this. So the first one is the flagellum. Give yourself a tick if you've got that word written down. And the reason the flagellum helps is because it moves the sperm cell. Because remember, the sperm have to actually swim from their entry point to the egg itself. So the flagellum allows them to move. Second one is they've got lots of mitochondria. If you look at the mid piece in the diagram, you can see it's packed full of those red blobs, which are the mitochondria there. And mitochondria are needed to provide energy through respiration. And the mitochondria are the site of that respiration. So 1 mark for lots of mitochondria, 1 mark for providing energy through respiration. And our third and final one, the acrosome, give yourself a mark for that one. This is a sac at the front on the head. If you look at the diagram, you can see it there, which contains digestive enzymes which are going to break down the egg membrane to actually let the sperm enter for fertilization to occur. So add it up, totals out of 7, write your scores next to your work there. If you need a bit longer to write those down because you didn't get them all, then pause the video now so that you've got a chance to write those down, because you do need everything on the screen at the moment in your books if you've not already got it. Our second cell we're going to look at are fat cells. So the whole purpose of these cells is to store fat. That is their function, their role. But there's 3 things that these fat cells can then be used to do in the body. So write down their function, and then I want you to see if you can list the 3 things that we can use fat cells for. I'm going to give you just about 30 seconds to have a go at answering those 3 points. Okay, let's check those answers then. The 3 things we should, hopefully anyway, have written in our book. First of all, storing energy. Give yourself a tick for that one. Secondly, insulating the organism. So this is particularly important for those organisms that live in very cold areas. And finally, providing protection around the organs. So give yourself a tick for each one of those you got right. If you're missing any of them, then obviously write them in now. So I'll leave this up just for about another 20 seconds to give you a chance to write them down. In terms of the adaptations for our fat cells then, we've got 2 that are really important for us to know. So write these ones down in your books as I explain them to you. So the first one is that they've actually only got a small cytoplasm layer around this reservoir of fat. So I've given you a picture in the middle at the bottom there of what these cells look like. Now, what we actually find is that these cells are pretty special because they're able to expand in size. This isn't just a mild expansion. I'm talking about these cells being able to expand to 1,000 times their original size as they fill with fat. So this is why if during our lockdown period all you're doing is eating a whole ton of junk food, then you're probably going to be going back to school having gained a little bit of weight. Because what's going to happen is, as you're taking in excess fats into your body, then it's going to be filling these fat cells, these adipose cells, with that fat, and they're going to expand up to potentially 1,000 times their original size. So maybe cut back on the snacks. And just for those of you who do love Doctor Who and a little bit of a sci-fi geek like I am, then you may remember the episode where we actually had the adipose, and there they are in the bottom right corner. If you don't like Doctor Who, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but it doesn't matter for your science exam. The next type of cell we need to know about are the red blood cells. Now, hopefully these are familiar to you. So I've given you a picture of them at the bottom there, but what I want you to do is, first of all, write down their function in your book. Then I want you to list their adaptations. And if you can, explain how that helps them to carry out this function. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to have a go at this. Let's see what we got for our red blood cells then. Hopefully we did say that their function is to transport oxygen around the body. So give yourself a tick if you got that bit right. In terms of their adaptations, I've got 3 for you here that you need to know. So if you haven't got these, make sure you've written them down. So the first one is to do with the shape of the red blood cell. And they've got a very special shape, and the words here are important. So they're called a biconcave disc. Now, biconcave, if we break that word down, bi meaning two, and concave basically dips in. So what we've got is a disc that has a dip on either side. So if you think about those refresher sweets or the Palmer violets that have got a little dip in the middle, they're kind of like that. Now, the whole reason this biconcave disc shape is important is because it increases the surface area to volume ratio. Now, hopefully we remember from where we did our work on diffusion, then if we've got this high surface area to volume ratio, then we've got a faster rate of diffusion. So it means that the oxygen can be transported into those red blood cells nice and quickly. Second one we've got is that they contain a chemical called hemoglobin. Now, heme is all to do with iron, so this is why if you're anemic, you may have issues with obviously having your ability to transport oxygen, because you won't have enough of your hemoglobin, so therefore you're going to struggle to transport enough oxygen, and that makes you feel a bit kind of tired and yeah. So, hemoglobin is a protein which is going to bind to the oxygen to make this other chemical, very imaginatively named, oxyhemoglobin. So when the oxygen binds to it, oxyhemoglobin, no oxygen bound to it, just hemoglobin or deoxyhemoglobin. And then our third and final one is that they do not have a nucleus. So our red blood cells do not have a nucleus in them. And the whole reason they don't have a nucleus is to make more space for the hemoglobin itself. So this is why your red blood cells will only live for a finite period of time, because there's no nucleus in there to control everything else to do with your cell. So make sure you've got those written down. If you need a bit more time to do that, then pause the video now so you can get those points written in your books. The penultimate specialised cell we're going to look at are the ciliated cells. So you can see the picture of them there on your screen. Now their job is to move mucus which contains bacteria and dirt out of our airways to the top where we can swallow it down into our stomach and it can be broken down. So what we're actually seeing is the ciliated cells are one type of cell, but we've also got another type of cell in our airways called goblet cells. Now goblet cells are ones that produce mucus. So what we find is your goblet cells will produce a certain amount of mucus, your bacteria get trapped in that and the dirt and so on that we're breathing in, and then it gets moved up your airways by those ciliated cells doing a little wafty motion, and that then means we can swallow it down into our stomach where the stomach acid can destroy them. So what I would like you to do is first of all write down the function and then have a go at explaining how bacteria are prevented from reaching the lungs, and use the keywords I've given you in the red box there. So I'm just going to give you about another minute and a half to have a go at this. Okay, let's see if we got these points written down then. If you did, give yourself a tick for each one you get. So the goblet cells produce mucus, give yourself a tick for that one. That mucus traps the bacteria, tick. The cilia then waft the mucus or move the mucus is fine, that's worth a mark. And then finally to the top of the airway where it's swallowed into the stomach for your fourth mark. So add it up, give yourself a score out of 4 next to that bit. So our final cell is one that hopefully looks familiar to you. It is the palisade cell in plants. So its function is that it's the site of photosynthesis. What I want you to do is list me the adaptations. So I'm just going to give you about a minute and a half to do that. Hopefully we got these 2 adaptations written down. The first one is they've got lots of chloroplasts, and the reason that's important is because the chloroplasts trap the light energy to allow the cells to carry out photosynthesis. The second one is they've got that very regular shape which is maintained by the cell wall, And that's to allow those cells to be closely packed together, so we can really jam them in and therefore maximize the number of palisade cells and therefore the number of chloroplasts for photosynthesis once more. So just leave that up for about another 20 seconds in case you need to write those down. Obviously tick any you got right. As always, we're going to finish off with our plenary questions. So those of you with target grades up to a grade 5, it's the 2 columns on the left. Those of you with target grades over a grade 5, it's the 2 columns on the right. I'm going to leave this up here for about a minute today, but if you think you're going to need longer, obviously just hit pause on the video to give yourself the time to answer them properly. As always, you can find the answers to the plenary over on my website, sciencewright.weebly.com. You'll also be able to find that under the Internet tab. Just select the week that we're in, and then you'll be able to find things like the lesson PowerPoints, the answers to the plenary, any additional work, and if there's any little experiments I thought you could do at home, then they're there too. So have a look and get using that.